Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to be with you. My name is Fergus Murphy, and I look after personal banking in Virgin Money UK. Next slide, please. So today we'll talk a little bit about neobanks, traditional banks, what we're all doing, what the difference between them are, how we see things as a player somewhat in the middle of that spectrum. Next slide, please. And again. So we're seeing significant changes in what customers want and how they're behaving through the COVID pandemic. Clearly, it's been a difficult environment for everybody and many companies. And I think it's been a check for the world in general in terms of what's important, what's not important, how we spend our time, what we do. We're seeing significant demographic changes. We're seeing significant changes in what customers say they want from us in banking. Next slide, please. Those changes have been accentuated in relation to age demographics. We see now that older customers have probably caught up with younger demographics, millennials, etc., in relation to their willingness to engage with the bank or indeed any other company online or on mobile versus other channels. This was something that we've been waiting for a long time within the industry, and the pandemic has accelerated that acceptance or even at times possibly preference by customers in relation to choosing digital. We were somewhat a digital laggard in terms of onboarding our customers digitally, but we've seen a significant acceleration since our rebrand, since we implemented our strategy, but specifically since the pandemic. So those new behaviors are probably set for good now across the population in general, and it's important that all companies selling or producing whatever one sells or produces takes cognizance of that and implements that very strongly across their strategic approach. Next slide, please. And so, as you can see from this slide, in banking, customers are looking to be online, be digital, use less cash. They're not out and about as much. When they are out and about, they're more careful about how they buy something in terms of hygiene, in terms of approach, in terms of using cash. And so we're seeing some important upticks in relation to use of POS, use of debit card, use of secure online purchases versus in particular cash. And we expect again that will continue. The future of cash is something that is very interesting across many countries, particularly developed countries. And whether cash should be a utility, provided by a utility, how it's organized in society, I think is one of the big questions in the UK and many other countries in the times that come post-pandemic, given what we have seen. Next slide, please. So various surveys, we see that customers in general are clearly, many customers, concerned about their job security. They are focused often on daily necessities. And indeed, understandably, in some circumstances, 15% of customers say they're willing to walk away from their debts, given what has happened. Because circa 30% of people find themselves in some form of furlough or some type of reduced work hours, or they've become unemployed. And so these are seismic shifts in society, well documented over the last 8 months. And banking, like every other industry, is catching up with these changes in behavior, with these changes in customer preferences, and trying clearly to do the right thing by our customers, particularly those that are deemed more vulnerable. Next slide, please. And so the acceleration that I'm referring to is shown very simply in this chart, and this is very conventional and wouldn't be controversial. We see less and less footfall in our branches. We see less usage of ATMs, less usage of cash in society. Physical channels remain extremely important. Branches, the branch of the future, maybe touch on it again later on, needs to project your brand, needs to be ambassadorial, needs to be community-led, needs to be looking after vulnerable customers. Very, very important. Has its place, and we believe as a full service provider that we are, and again, I'll touch on it a few times, we are human beings, not human doings. And people do, at the appropriate time, want that connection with a human being. But digital clearly is the channel of choice for most companies and most customers as we grow into the digital world. And so virtual channels, or mobile channels in particular, is the way to go. Some companies, some analysts, some observers talk about digital and physical and other such terms. But really what we're trying to talk about here, I guess, is a seamless service where human beings, as opposed to human doings, and the artificial intelligence that technology enables are brought together, that kind of IQ that technology and the EQ of people are brought together to provide a seamless service for our customers. It seems and it sounds quite simple, but of course it's quite difficult to do for many, many banks who are building their digital apparatus and services over legacy platforms that in some part might be 40 or 50 years old, functioning and stable, but 40 or 50 years old. So it can be quite challenging. And we believe we're making good progress in that regard. Next slide, please. So again, looking at various surveys, 48% of customers are saying they expect a bank, financial services provider, to be proactive and to use the data that they permission us to use, of course, in a proactive way to provide them with opportunities around products and services, so that we are describing, we are diagnosing, we're predicting, and ultimately then prescribing to the customer. And again, over 80% of customers saying that they would be willing to share data in relation to geo-targeting and in relation to personalization of banking products. Because clearly it's all about providing customers with intelligent, personal financial products at the right time, anytime, any place, anywhere. We need to be complete, connected, and consistent. And customers, I believe, are ready for that. They're ready to share that data with us. So where banks for 500 years or more have worked on the yield curve and provided money as an intermediary between borrowers and lenders, we've been doing that since, I suppose, the Medici's in Florence. We're now also intermediating on a new curve, a data curve, and appropriately, with the appropriate permissions, etc., looking to monetize for the customer and for the bank, financial services provider, the data that we have on our customers, again, as appropriately and as approved, etc. And so now the way I look at it is that we've got two curves we're intermediating on: the money curve and the data curve. Next slide, please. Again, what we're finding is that in general, customers are okay about their banking. They see it, though, as unexciting. They see us as utilitarian, hard to innovate, hard to differentiate. They feel that their business isn't appropriately valued a lot of the time. And in particular, they have questions or criticisms, justifiable, around loyalty and the bank putting a price on my loyalty and rewarding me for my loyalty. Of course, customers always have issues with fees and charges. That will never go away, and it's a constant reminder, and it's a healthy tension for financial institutions to keep providing the best products and services they can to their customers at the cheapest price and in the best way. But this issue where customers don't feel rewarded, don't feel that their loyalty is seen, is something that we have seen a lot and that we've tried to learn from and build some or a lot of our future propositions around. Next slide, please. And so in Virgin Money, we're looking to try to make banking less functional and cognitive and more about emotion and experience, and making that emotion more about happiness, bringing together what is a vast array of Virgin Group companies to the benefit of the customer. And we'll touch on that as we walk through the next number of slides. Next slide, please. And again, please. So in the personal bank in Virgin Money, it is what it suggests. It's personal banking to our circa 6 million customers. Our vision is to help customers bank and live in a more rewarding way. Next slide, please. So we've used that word reward, as you can see, in that ambition. And we've looked at our strategy very, very carefully over the last 8 months through the pandemic. And we believe that our strategy still holds up very, very strongly. And in fact, what we really just need to do is accelerate it further and try to be more agile. And I think nearly every company in the world, certainly everyone I talk to, would say that they have found an ability to increase productivity through the crisis, because they've had to become more agile. They've had to let folks get on with things to enable customers, to help customers, to build new customer channels to market, to improve the time to market and reduce the cost of to serve. And so we've seen the same thing. And we've just refined our strategy into the 3 areas as shown on that slide, not to go into it in detail, and that we're trying to make sure that everything we do is about strengthening, for example, our digital sales and servicing, about reimagining our physical network. So we're using the word imagine rather than saying we want to transform it. Again, we'll touch on that. And that we're always looking to provide value-added products and services to support our customers, particularly our vulnerable customers. Again, very simple, but of course, thousands of people are involved in actually making it a reality. Next slide, please. We see ourselves sitting in the middle, kind of literally and metaphorically. We are medium-sized in the UK in terms of the size and scale of UK banks. It is a very big market. Don't forget, it's the 5th, maybe or 6th, depending on the time of day, biggest economy in the world. It oscillates with France, as you all know, depending on how much wine is being sold or what the exchange rate is or whatever. So it's a very, very big economy with very, very good incumbent players. We see ourselves as being, again, as I will touch on, a little bit more experiential than some. because we're smaller but of scale, a little more agile, and with the ability to experiment a little bit more and cut through. Clearly on the right-hand side of that slide, what are sometimes called neobanks, which is not a very fair term really, some great new providers of financial services, are typically solely digital, are typically very, very agile. They're building their reputation and their capital bases in terms of still being somewhat nascent, but that's only by definition of time. But they are typically a unichannel. And I do believe that it's important for banks to provide customers with that digital or omni-channel ability, that there are times again where we appreciate human interaction. I know that I had an issue last week in my personal life with a provider of broadband. And it was frustrating to try to engage, very frustrating to try to engage with them digitally on this particular issue. And I did get through in a contact center to a lovely young gentleman. He was from Wales, and he sorted my issue out in a really, really pleasant way. And that meant something to me, and that experience will stay with me. And I'm going to recommend that company in a way I wouldn't have through their digital channel. So there's a tension between people and machines all the time that continues. And I think we're sitting in the middle, and we believe we've a sufficient scale to be relevant and sufficient agility to be technologically savvy. Next slide, please. I'll actually move on to the next slide again, please. I think we've actually covered that one. So we believe that emotional and experience is more important than cognitive and functional. Banking, again, being regarded as with a reputation of functional. The terms and conditions, the reliability of a product, the data gathered, the reusability of that data, the accuracy of that data, the regulatory approval and appropriateness of the product. All very matter of fact, all incredibly important things, but we must take them as given if we're going to provide products and services into the financial marketplace to personal customers. So how do we make that a little bit more interesting? We know that people regard experiences much more than they regard functional activity. We know that people spend over 2 times the amount of time and money on brands they love. We know there is something called a happiness halo, where there is a psychological awareness or anticipation, followed by an interaction, followed by some kind of an afterglow, which is where you might get your NPS or your smile score, your little smiley touch button reaction from the customer. And that's about emotion. And emotion is emotion, coming from the Latin root, I think. Energy in motion. And so how do we create energy around financial services? How do we make it as personal as possible? Moving from the functional to the personalized, to the individualized. And it's a big question, it's a big subject, and nobody's going to crack it too quickly, but we're trying. And so what we're doing is we're bringing the breadth of the Virgin Group to bear in and through our financial services offerings. We expect to form seamless partnerships with the likes of Virgin Media, Virgin Wine, Virgin Active gyms, Virgin Airlines, of course, Virgin Galactic in the future. I'll come back to that. Virgin Hotels, Virgin Voyages, and others, to build a lifestyle proposition for our customers, clearly with Virgin Money in the middle, because banking is still the artery through which we live a lot of our lives, sadly or rightly. As the songs kind of said, money makes the world go round. And ABBA, I think it was, showing my age, money, 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 what's so funny? It's a rich man's world. Of course, it was a rich man's world back then. It's a rich person's world right now, as we've thankfully moved on. So how do we bring all this together into something that is exciting for our customers? We've just gone live with a new personal current account campaign where we're starting at the foothills of building out what I've described. And we've some way to go, but this is our first rollout. And we're very, very excited about it, where as opposed to saying to a customer, you know what, we'll give you cash if you open an account with us. We're trying to elevate the discussion a little bit and saying, hey, we'll give you some nice wine. Lots of people like to drink wine. If you don't like to drink wine, well, one, you can give it away or as a present. It's coming up to Christmas. Or two, we'll give you non-alcoholic wine. And we'll also give you a great bundle offer with Virgin Media where you can save a lot of money. And we'll also build onto that many other things as we go. Probably next off the cab rank will be bundling Virgin Giving into the proposition, where we'll say to our customers, we'd like you to do business with us. We want to give you value. And if you wish to share some of that value that we're willing to share with you with charities, that's one click away through Virgin Giving. So we're quite excited about the opportunity and the ability to change the narrative around personal financial services in the UK and hopefully beyond. Next slide, please. And of course, we're looking to link our digital and other journeys up and not just attract new customers, but also keep our current customers happy. And so that means increasing cross-sell. It means increasing the famous term share of wallet. And we're looking to reward our customers, again, using that word. If you bank with us, we're willing to share value with you. It's that customer value management equation, sharing value with the customer through their lifetime of requirements in financial services so that we remain relevant and up to speed with what the customer wants and what the customer is doing. We will look to build that great loyalty and rewards program through a new currency. That currency will be what we will call points, red points. And that currency will allow us fungibility between earning and redeeming rewards right across the group, and including, of course, third parties. We also will build out a very strong market comparison functionality where a new customer or a user, before they become really a customer, can see the value that they can extract through our app, through working with us. That we will provide them with higher interest rate or more of an experience than some other provider, utilizing open banking. And a very strong market comparison set of tools, where again, in relation to energy switching, for example, where we already have a very seamless, good journey with Go Compare to help you change your energy provider if you so wish to and save hundreds of pounds. But not just energy. We expect to open that marketplace to lots of other products and services that aren't banking or that aren't provided by Virgin Group. So that, as I would say, I believe if our customers are going into our app to check what the weather is, then we've won, because it's so involuntary to them to just go into the app naturally, because they can manage their money, they can go on a holiday, they can look at an opportunity to go and take a flight, they can join a gym, they can get some wine, or whatever they may wish to do. So it's right across, of course, what we might call front book and back book, new customers and customers who've been good to us in the past and are loyal to us, and we want to keep and we want to recognize that loyalty. Next slide, please. In terms of the propositions and products that we bring to market, we want them to be the best. And an example would be our M account, which we recently launched through the summer, which is, these accounts are termed rather crudely, I think, basic bank accounts. So it's an offering that all banks provide to ensure inclusivity in financial services, to get people on the first rung of the ladder with regard to banking. And we believe our M account is the best in the market. It's got excellent functionality, tagging, savings notifications, enabling the customer to start functioning in everyday banking and to start saving. This account we're quite proud of. It's performing very well for us. We believe it's socially and financially inclusive, and that's very, very important to us as we move forward with our strategy. Next account, please. Next slide, please. And of course, like every other bank, we have been trying to look after our customers really well through this crisis. I think it's fair to say to all banks that this crisis we didn't cause. We certainly caused the majority of the last one, and we've all got the scars on our backs in relation to that, and many, many lessons learned, and very poor customer outcomes, customer fairness standards, poor risk management. As we know, that caused massive problems globally, massive recapitalization of banks, a huge recession. We've learned. We're all trying to carefully change our culture, be part of something good in society, magnify our customer standards, improve them, and build sustainable businesses. And as I say, I think this particular crisis that we're all going through wasn't caused by banks. And I do believe the banking response has been professional and caring. And that's every bank. That's not just the bank I work for. We've provided 55, 60,000 payment holidays to customers across credit cards and personal loans, massive amount of C bills and B bill lending in our business bank. And that's really important. And I think you can do that best with a digital, but also branch and contact center strategy, because people have needed to talk to us through this period, and they've appreciated that. And we've got a lot of positive feedback that customers have been able to transfer from one channel to the other reasonably seamlessly, usually doing the basics online or in app, and then when it became a little bit more complex, talk to a human being. So clearly we're working through this. Clearly we're still in a furlough period. Clearly we're still in a payment holiday extension period. Clearly banks have built significant provisions into their balance sheets going into 2021. And I think we're well placed. And I think the service we've provided our customers will be a leading indicator in getting them through the crisis and getting us all back to whatever the new normal will be. Next slide, please. So we, of course, are building the functionality across all our channels all the time. And one or two slides to follow would seem fairly conventional and fairly simple, particularly if you're working in a new bank, in what's sometimes called, again, a neobank. But again, we must remember some of the banks that have been around longer are bringing together systems and platforms that are a lot older and are many. Sometimes, if I'm being unfair, I might describe it as a spaghetti junction for banks. So building a microservices layer on top of the legacy platforms so that the customer-facing experience and engagement is digital and slick is a big challenge for many banks. But I think we're getting there again with the use of what we call our IB platform, which is our microservices layer that connects to the customer, our front of house system. And again, live chat and chatbots and ability to do video sessions with staff, ability to speak to somebody on the telephone if and as required, but everything built around the central artery of a digital proposition is what we're about, and we believe we're making good inroads in relation to that, or as are many banks. Next slide, please. And again, please. So we will continue to focus on that digital experience, digital excellence, where a lot of, if not all, but a lot of what the customer will need can be provided through a digital journey, linking that digital journey through the secure site into, as I say, live chat, etc. Next slide, please. And we believe that it is very much about people still. I'll say again that we're human beings, not human doings. And we see that if we can just continue to roll down that slide, we see that people want to talk to people. And we have built a money on your mind service through the pandemic, where we have staff who are engaging on just that. Money, what's on your mind? Money's on my mind. And we've had 6,500 questions answered through the pandemic. We've had millions of hits on YouTube, views on YouTube, where our staff are helping customers and non-customers through the pandemic with the frequently asked questions that customers typically have with regard to their money and their worries around money. So, for example, we've had 10 million YouTube views, 200,000 website visits, and as I say, 6,500 customer questions answered through these team that our team called them the Money on Your Mind team. It's been a fantastic way to service our customers. It's been fantastic for our brand, and it's gone, well, literally viral. So I think it's a good example of wanting to be experiential, wanting to engage the customer, but doing that digitally if possible. And in this regard, it has been. We also have what we call the Red Team populated in our branches right across the country. And the Red Team are our paratroopers who, in the front line, who have all been trained to an excellent standard in relation to the new digital world we live in, and also new ways of working that we are living in terms of customer behaviors and how we should show up for work as staff and colleagues and be at our best for as much of the day as we can be. So some really good things there that we're quite proud of. Next slide, please. And again, just reiterating that, you know, we do expect that the future is digital, that the younger folks, younger generations, but growingly older demographics are happy and content to go through digital journeys as the starting point and standard bearer of their engagement with a financial institution, with a bank. But very importantly, that's augmented by the ability to pop into a branch and talk to somebody about a more complex query, or get on the phone if and as required and have a conversation with a live human being. Next slide, please. And again. So our purpose is about making you happier about money. We believe we can do that with the approach, strategy, propositions, and people that I described to you through this presentation. It's important that we continue to remember we are dealing with human beings and they have complex needs. I think 100 years ago, human knowledge was growing at something like, multiplying at something like twice every 13 years. It's now, I understand, growing at a multiple of 2 every 11 months. So no matter how good we are at building data and working with numbers, it's growing exponentially. And it still means there's a need to translate all of this into something the customer understands. And that's the challenge for our bank and every other bank around the world in the coming period. How do you take this massive amount of data, insight, algorithms, and personalize it for the customer and translate it into something that they understand and that they want to talk to you about and that they will appreciate you for? Next slide, please. So this is just, again, very conventional, and many of the people who will be listening will be far more adept and expert than I in relation to SAME. But we talk about CRO, conversion rate optimization, the ability for small teams to be in a room together, cross-functional, working agilely on a problem, or a polarity, in fact, maybe more often than a problem, or an opportunity, so that we can test, beta test, roll out an MVP, minimum viable product, test with our customers, implement, move on quickly, continue to improve those digital journeys in a very small steps. A small acorn does a large oak tree grow, etc. And so we're seeing these small step-like improvements throughout our journeys. When you add them, the journey becomes more beautiful, more interactive, more experiential, more service-led. We're finding that working in these pods, or squads, in this way is so much better, more efficient, and productive than big projects with multiple layers of bureaucracy, people, committees, forums, etc. And so there's a large cultural change for banks, and for our organization as one of them, to work more like this and to enable folks, to empower them, to make them accountable for change. And we saw that through the early days of the pandemic, we had to work like that. People were working from home. They had to cut through. They had to help customers in the way described. And they were able to. So we could do this. All banks could do this, but we were probably not sure, uncertain. Now we've shown we can do it. And I think we can let those doors open more widely in terms of enabling this type of approach in our bank and in other institutions to improve our quality of service to our customers, and frankly to be a little bit more like a neobank. Next slide, please. So it all comes back to our people, though, and like other companies, we would say our people are great people. They have provided great service through this crisis. We're not out of the woods yet by any means. We're back in, as you all know, into lockdowns, quasi-lockdowns, an uncertain approach to the Christmas festive period, vaccines coming down the track. But it's a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, etc. And so let's see where it goes from here. Next slide. And just to continue to populate that slide. everything I'm talking to you about, as in every other company, ultimately it comes through in top of bank statistics in terms of the percentage of our business and our sales that are digital, in terms of the number of customers that are contacting us digitally, or the comms that we're sending out to those customers digitally. For example, we've had over 288 million logins to our online banking services in the last 10 months. That's quite a lot. 92% of our customers are on a mobile app registered for our credit card business, etc., etc. So digital is very, very powerful. It allows scaling, it allows cost reduction, it allows instantaneous customer interaction. And we're seeing that coming through in many, many statistics as the boat, to use that analogy, continues to move through the water, sometimes slowly. But if you add up all those micro changes that are taking place, you typically can look back on the year and show and see a palpable change in customer experience. Next slide, please. So that's me, and that's us. I hope there was something in there for you in terms of what we're trying to do and how we're approaching the pandemic, how we're approaching the UK marketplace in general, and our future place within that. And we are positive for the future. We've learned a lot through the crisis. It's given us further confidence that we were on the right course in any event. And I would conclude by probably saying a lot done, more to do. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Hi, everyone, and many thanks for joining this live Q&A. I'm here with Fergus. Afternoon, Fergus, and thanks for coming on board.
Good afternoon, Adam. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Fascinating session there. It's not always you get that level of insight from one of the major players in the market, so many thanks for that. Appreciate it's a final session of the day. We've got a couple of questions I just wanted to run through with you, if that's okay. The first is around customer acquisition, and it's quite an interesting one, actually, due to the number of different brands that you have under the Virgin profile. So when it comes to customer acquisition, do you feel there is enough awareness around Virgin Money, specifically due to the other industries you operate in, so transport and experience, for example? Is this a key challenge, and how do you continue to or try to overcome it?
Okay, that's a very good question, and I suppose it is a new brand in financial services, relatively new brand. Let's say 10, 12 years old, that kind of thing, and clearly many of the household Main Street brands and banks have been around for well over 100 years. So there is it's certainly a very good question. But in fact, what we're finding is that our brand awareness is heightened for financial services because of the 50-year-old saturation of the Virgin name in general, be it Virgin Galactic being one of the more recent ones, Virgin Media, Virgin Wine, which is one I particularly like, Virgin Hotels coming on board very, very soon, Virgin Media, Virgin Airlines, Virgin Atlantic Airlines. So what we're finding in the past, Virgin Trains, what we're finding is that overall there's a brand awareness and an expectation of service and good quality. And so we're actually kind of piggybacking on that rather than being handicapped by it. And as I was trying to explain in that presentation, the biggest challenge and opportunity for us then is to harness that and to be able to create that Virgin family ecosystem and try and make financial services a little bit more experiential, not quite so functional, so that the weight and breadth of the Virgin group of companies, different types of experiences, can be brought to bear through financial services as well as providing the customer with financial services. So it seems quite holistic and so far, touching wood, so good.
Great stuff. Many thanks, Fergus. Keep a keen eye on how we continue, or how you continue to pull all those different brands together and intertwine them, I guess, to offer a seamless customer experience. That's very interesting, especially when we start looking at kind of embedded finance and all the things that come with that. Moving on slightly, it's been said over the last couple of days that financial services needs a bit of a cultural reset. So I have my own kind of thoughts and opinions on it, but I'll throw that one to you. And I guess specifically around, it's clear from your presentation that you've just delivered that your workforce kind of sit at the hub of everything you do. So it'd be interesting to kind of get your thoughts on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a great question, and it's a kind of a $64,000 question. It's a big question. I'll try and give as best answer I can in a short period of time. The banking industry globally caused, or certainly were the main perpetrators for the global financial crisis of 08, 9, 10, 11, and 12, where the whole world had to reset, and it was calamitous for many, many, many people, as we know. I think that experience, after 10, 15 years of banks kind of feeding at the trough globally, doing too much business, doing the wrong type of business, not putting the customer first, not all the time, but certainly a degree of the time that was too much. I think banks recognize that, and they should, very, very strongly after that crisis. The recapitalization of banks and the amount of management teams that left the scene, rightly, I think recognize that. And I think we've all been on a journey since then to repurpose banks, certainly we have, to make them much more fit for purpose for society, to make financial services something that maybe people could be proud about again, actually working in. In the middle of the financial crisis, I remember when I'd be in a taxi, the taxi driver would ask me, "What do you work at?" And I just say marketing, which wasn't a lie, but it wasn't really telling him what I did. And that was okay for me at the time, because if I said banking, it would have been a fairly unpleasant taxi ride. I get it. We all get it. And so we've been working really, really, really hard at that. We want to be a positive part of society. I would say that the current crisis that we're going through, the pandemic, hasn't been caused by banks, thankfully. And I think we've been a positive contributor to the efforts society and business is making to get us out the other side. And without beating our chest or our drum too hard, I think the banks, as you'd expect, like every other industry, have worked incredibly hard to try to do the right thing by customers through the crisis. We are trying to put vulnerable customers in general much more to the fore of our business and what we do. And in our purpose statement, and the type of people we employ, and the type of people we train, and the way we train them. So I think it is changing. It's changing organically, but for change to be effective, you've got to measure it. So what gets measured gets done, and we are measuring that in terms of our customer outcomes, the way we look at our complaints, the number of our complaints, the root cause analysis of our complaints, our engagement scores, the culture we're building. And I know it's a little bit of a long answer, but culture it's like an iceberg. 1/10 of it is above the waterline, and the rest of it is kind of underneath the waterline and hard to see, never mind change and fix. So a journey on culture and cultural change in a bank or any other organization is a multi-year project, about role modeling, about what do we do when no one's looking, when no one can see us. And I think we're well down that journey, repurposing banks and making them a positive pillar in society. I take two countries very quickly where banking typically is seen more positively. And I hope through time, if we keep doing what we're doing, it'll look a little bit like this in the UK at a point in time. Singapore, Switzerland, two countries that have very large banking marketplaces, different reasons. I think banking is still an industry young people want to work in those societies, in those economies. And my little vision of the world would be that positivity towards financial services, as seen in those two countries, might be seen again in Western European countries like the UK at a point in time, if we keep doing what we're doing. But it's hard yards, and it doesn't happen overnight. I think we're doing it, but of course, people are right to be impatient.
Perfect. Thanks, Fergus. And one question that has just come in, quite interesting actually, is Gareth McNabb at Nationwide and part of the Open Banking for Good piece, kind of has an opinion that ultimately there isn't just a section of society that is vulnerable. At any stage within our lives, we could all be vulnerable at some point, and that's clearly very true, and no, to a certain extent, truer words in the current circumstances that we find ourselves in the middle of a global pandemic. So on that basis then, and something that's specifically open banking related, do you think that kind of we're harnessing or utilising kind of open banking services and platforms enough to effectively pull us through the pandemic as we are, or has that kind of been hampered slightly just purely because we only launched open banking, came to the floor in kind of 2018? If we were 5 years further ahead, potentially we'd be utilising it more, but it'd be interesting to kind of get your thoughts on that.
I think, Adam, it's more the former. Sadly, and I think it is about timing. Given the momentum, given what's happening, given the opening up of open banking, we're on the right track. But the pandemic has probably come along a little bit soon with regard to open banking really being the lever, or one of the most important levers in which we would solve the pandemic from a financial services point of view. But it's coming down the track big time, obviously, with FCA guidance, and absolutely rightly so, around the way banks communicate, reciprocal communication, two-way communication with your vulnerable customer community, so that the vulnerable customer can self-identify and engage with you in a more holistic way, in a more thorough way through time, in the way they may have done years ago, or still possibly in a branch, in a very seamless, very natural way. And we're not there yet, and all the banks are working on it, but open banking will really help us to, I think, identify those customers and communicate with them better, at an individual bank and at a sector level. So coming down the track, a lot to do. It'll be one, I think, of the business cases for open banking in the future.
Great stuff. Many thanks, Fergus. That's all the questions from me, and we'll watch on with eagle eyes as the FCA come to market with the recent consultation around open finance as well, and we'll also keep our eyes peeled on the future of Virgin Money. So many thanks for that, and look forward to welcoming you back to an Open Banking Expo event very soon.
Thanks very much, Adam. Enjoyed it. Best of luck. Thank you.